None of us is an opera maker. None of us is a highly culturated audience of opera. We have different level of knowledge about it.
I don't know anything about opera. I came from Mexico City, which has opera, but it's only opera for the elite. So we, the mortal people as me, we never go to the opera because it's inaccessible. It's so expensive. So when I saw the open call, and I say, why not to apply? So I want to have the curiosity to see, okay, how do you exactly work? Because you do a lot of things and big things.
I have been working a few years in performance art, and I just felt that all the elements that I was putting in the scenes, like the visuals, kind of the scenography, the paintings, the sculptures, and the performers and the narratives that I was writing for them, it was working like a whole melody, and it can have the basis of what I understood like opera.
And I guess we're really interested in working with characters and telling stories through drag, taking kind of classical texts and interpreting them through like a queer and working class perspective and what that looks like.
At the moment, we've been kind of using the theatre stage as a place to incorporate art practice, music practice, choreography, and everything else. And I think it's getting to a point where the opera, or the idea of opera, is another container which can contain all these elements we're developing.
In my work, I suppose, I often make films that are stories about stories, and opera is just such an amazing storytelling form, and I generally like to work collaboratively, and I like to work with people from different backgrounds that I think we can together help push our own fields in different directions by combining forces. So I think opera is a really exciting stage to try stuff out on.
I've reached a stage where I have a very clear agenda in how I want to position myself and the stories I want to tell, and with whom and at what scale. So I see this kind of as like an opportunity to build my vocabulary around music theater in general and opera in particular. I see it also as an opportunity to see how tradition and heritage are understood and debated in this sector.
As a director, I'm very interested on how would you collaborate with someone who already has an opinion on a piece, which would be by the point of entrance of the music. And then how can you both together build a work that makes sense, that converge into an image and into a journey for the audience that makes sense.
I work many years with musicians, with performers, with choreographers. For me, collaboration is essential in my practice, and that's another principle that I share with the opera field. And because to know the musicians and to work directly with them and directly with a choreographer is easier for the result and to achieve a richer result, always these different voices together.
From the little that I know about opera, you can't make an opera on your own. It is inherently collaborative, and precisely because there's so many elements to it, you always have to work in a team. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so interesting, is that it's not a totalitarian overview, that it really has to come from a dialogue and be a co-creation.
In addition to the peers, there is the pedagogues, contributors, I would say guardian angels who are kind of hovering around this residency. And each brings, I think, a very confident sense of what their practice is. And I have kind of just been trying to soak up, I think, and listen to all of these different contributions.
We've been looking at the history of opera. We've been deconstructing opera, looking at the elements that make up an opera. I mean, we've had hours of discussions about what constitutes an opera, how is opera different from musicals, musical theater. And it's something I'm still processing in my head. And today we've worked with two lovely opera singers and just looking at how direction affects performances of singers.
Like, they cannot sing this note in every position. It's not physically possible. So you need to know a little bit about singing to direct them correctly. And the singers realized also that people outside of the opera would ask questions or make propositions that was unusual because we have no preconceptions. But the moment where someone say, this is a limit, I cannot do it like that, or no, you cannot completely change the rhythm because the rhythm is written. So it was at the beginning frightening because you just like, okay, but where is the freedom to interpret, to have a vision, to transcend something that is old or written? And afterwards, you understand that the tiny little spaces are actually huge. And when you see them, then you understand that it can reverse the whole work by a little tiny space. So, yeah, this was very good.
It's pretty early days in the residency so far, but it's already given me a much clearer idea of how things work in a practical sense, and I think given us all a lot of inspiration of the directions that you can take opera in and what you could do with it. And I think all of us as a group are really interested in finding new ways of working with opera rather than just kind of adhering to the classical rules.
This first residency is like a scan of what is artistically very important to us. It requires to think really about what, as an artist, are you really doing? What is, if you transfer your work to another place, then what's left of your questions, of your themes, of your interests? And I found it very, very, very tiring as an exercise, but so precious.
This residency is quite a lot. I will be open. It's illustrating. It's showing me a lot of how the opera works, how this old tradition is still being a tradition. But at the same time, I found that there is some interest from opera to being more for normal people, be more accessible.
When you think about class in any historical work, class is used as an object in order to further someone's argument about the world, rather than it is an experience. And it's only in really like a post-war environment where the tools of making have become more accessible, where things have been able to adapt and a different variety of stories are being told. And there's some growing pains there, but I think that's the reason why the work being made right now is more exciting than anything that has come before it.
I thought before coming here that opera was very close, a very close room. It was difficult it was not very porous. And coming here, I can see that my feelings and my intuitions toward it are certain, like it is porous, it is open to changes and modifications, and is willing to hear new voices or to see how we can play with it.
We get to a thing, we build structure, we get these things, and we don't understand anything, and we feel terrified, we're like scared, and then when we master it, and we're like, oh great, and then we get to a new stumbling block, and we're like, oh wow, okay, now we're a company. What does that mean? Oh, we need liability insurance and PLI insurance, and we need contracts, and every time we get a step further, we have a new thing that we have to kind of, and I think the time here will be us just unpicking all of this stuff that we need as infrastructure so we can start becoming a company. And I think the difference and the thing that makes us special is that how do we release these theatre works and how do we release music commercially, and how do those two things exist? And how does that then go into opera? Who knows? Not us.
Just to meet people and to see that there are many other artists around Europe, around everywhere, that there are also all the struggles that we face, what our ambitions that we want, that we have, all the dreams that we would like to accomplish. Because I think that artists, we have to resist through many things, and still we keep going. And this resistance and dreams somehow make us being here now together and share a common experience.